The U.S. Navy's newest aircraft carrier costs an astronomical $13 billion to construct, a price tag that has drawn sharp criticism from budget hawks and military skeptics alike. But its most powerful weapon isn't the squadron of F-35C Lightning II jets sitting on its deck, nor is it the phalanx of defensive missiles lining its hull. In fact, the true secret weapon of the USS Gerald R. Ford doesn't explode, it doesn't fly, and it doesn't destroy targets directly. You could stand on the flight deck and watch it operate all day and miss it completely because it is entirely invisible to the naked eye. This $13 billion question has baffled observers, but the answer lies in a fundamental shift in naval philosophy that prioritizes one specific metric over raw firepower. Hit subscribe now because what I'm about to reveal changes everything you think you know about how wars are won at sea, shifting the focus from the violence of explosives to the terrifying efficiency of logistics. To understand why the Navy spent this impossible sum, we have to look past the sticker shock and realize that the Ford wasn't built just to carry planes. It was built to solve a fatal bottleneck that has plagued the Nimitz class for decades. The media focuses on the budget overruns, claiming the ship is a disaster. But they are missing the revolution happening beneath the steel. The secret weapon is simply this: time. Specifically, the manipulation of time to create a level of violence no adversary can sustain. But achieving this required reinventing the aircraft carrier from the keel up, starting with the very mechanism that throws jets into the sky. On a Nimitz-class carrier, steam catapults have been a standard since the 1950s. They are reliable, but they are brutish machines that rely on a massive, complex web of high-pressure steam piping that runs through the entire ship. When a steam catapult fires, it creates a violent shock to the airframe, a traumatic event that shortens the lifespan of the aircraft and physically exhausts the pilots. Worse, steam systems have a hard reset time. They need to recharge pressure, creating a pause between launches that the enemy can exploit. The Ford deletes this problem with the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, or EMALS. By using stored kinetic energy and electricity to accelerate the shuttle, the Ford yanks aircraft into the air with a smooth, progressive acceleration curve rather than an explosive smash. This doesn't just save wear and tear on the jets, it allows the Ford to launch lighter drones and heavier loaded fighters that a steam system simply couldn't handle. But here's what almost nobody discusses regarding EMALS. It is the first step in a synchronized dance of destruction. The system resets almost instantly, meaning the only limit to how fast you can launch is how fast you can get planes to the catapults. And that brings us to the second invisible weapon, the one fighting the underground war. On the Nimitz, the weapon's elevators are lifts that bring bombs from the magazine to the deck are mechanical, cable-driven systems. They are slow, they require massive maintenance, and crucially, they are located in the middle of the flight deck. This means that when the crew needs to rearm a jet, they have to stop flight operations to open the elevator doors, creating a fatal choke point in the sortie generation rate. The Ford utilizes advanced weapons elevators that operate using electromagnetic fields. Similar to the catapults, these lifts move at double the speed of the old cable systems and can lift 24,000 pounds of ordnance in a single run. More importantly, they are pushed to the edges of the deck, meaning the crew can bring up bombs while jets are simultaneously taking off and landing. This eliminates the traffic jam that slows down the Nimitz. It sounds mundane, but in a high-intensity conflict, the speed at which you can put a bomb on a wing dictates who lives and who dies. Drop your thoughts below regarding this trade-off. Do you think spending billions on faster elevators is genius, or should that money have gone to more missiles? It's a debate about boring systems versus flashy weapons, but the engineering reality is undeniable. However, none of these electromagnetic systems work without a heartbeat. And that is where the Ford's third secret comes into play. The sheer electrical demand of EMALS and the new elevators would crash the grid of a Nimitz-class carrier instantly. To feed this hunger, the Navy installed Tebectele 1B nuclear reactors. These aren't just incremental upgrades, they are a quantum leap in power generation. A Nimitz carrier produces about 400 megawatts of thermal energy, but the Ford's reactors are designed to produce nearly 3 times the electrical generation capacity of its predecessor. We are talking about 100 megawatts of electricity available for ship systems alone. This massive surplus isn't just for launching planes today, it is future-proofing for weapons that haven't even been invented yet, like directed energy lasers and railguns that will require massive surges of power. The Ford is essentially a floating power plant capable of powering a small city, just so it can sustain a rate of fire that would melt the grid of any other ship. Yet, all that power is useless if the deck is a mess. The fourth innovation is the island shuffle. If you look at a silhouette of the Nimitz and the Ford, you will notice the tower, or island, on the Ford has been pushed far aft, sitting significantly further back on the hull. This wasn't an aesthetic choice, it was a mathematical one. By moving the tower, the designers opened up acres of usable deck space in front of the superstructure, creating a pit stop area where jets can be fueled and rearmed without blocking the runway. On the Nimitz, a plane lands, taxis to a parking spot, gets serviced, and then has to be towed to a catapult. It is a logistical nightmare of crossing paths. On the Ford, the flow is linear: land, pit stop, launch. It cuts the turnaround time for each aircraft by precious minutes. When you multiply those saved minutes by an air wing of 75 aircraft over a 24-hour period, you start to see the invisible weapon taking shape. But the cycle isn't complete until the aircraft returns, and that leads us to the final piece of the puzzle: the advanced arresting gear. Catching a 20-ton fighter jet moving at 150 miles per hour is a violent act. The old hydraulic engines on the Nimitz are effective, but they are dumb. They are set for a specific weight, and if a setting is wrong, the cable can snap or the jet can be torn apart. The Ford's AEG uses water twisters and electric motors to absorb the energy of the landing aircraft. Software analyzes the incoming speed and weight in real time, adjusting the resistance of the cable instantly. This reduces the stress on the airframe and, crucially, allows the Ford to recover drones and light aircraft that would be destroyed by the brute force of a hydraulic system. It expands the operational envelope of the carrier to include the future of unmanned warfare. Let me know your reasoning below. Which is the harder engineering challenge? The launch or the recovery? The launch requires raw power, but the recovery requires precision under chaos. Now, all these engineering advantages: the magnets, the reactors, the deck layout converge on one single, terrifying number: to 170. This is the sortie generation rate, or SGR. A Nimitz-class carrier, pushing its crew to the point of absolute exhaustion, can launch about 120 sorties in a 12-hour period, surging to maybe 240 in a dire emergency for a single day before operations collapse due to maintenance and fatigue. The USS Gerald R. Ford is designed to sustain a standard rate of 160 sorties per day for months on end, and surge to a staggering 270 sorties in a 24-hour window. That number, 270, is a secret weapon. It represents a level of aerial violence that no other nation on Earth can match or defend against. It means a Ford can put a bomb on a target every 5.3 minutes, around the clock, without stopping. It is an industrial-scale assembly line of destruction that turns the ocean into a factory floor of air power. The $13 billion wasn't for the steel. It was for the ability to overwhelm enemy air defenses through sheer volume and speed. While the enemy is still resetting their systems, the Ford has already rearmed, refueled, and relaunched its entire air wing. In a near-peer conflict, where technology levels are similar, the side that can cycle its aircraft faster wins. The Ford creates an attrition scenario that is mathematically impossible for an adversary to survive. They run out of missiles, they run out of fuel, and they run out of pilots long before the Ford runs out of sorties. This is why the visual of the ship is deceptive. You see a boat, the Pentagon sees a compression of time. The critics who focus on the costs are looking at a spreadsheet, while the strategists are looking at a stopwatch. The Ford's invisible weapon is its ability to conduct a war at a tempo that breaks the decision-making cycle of the enemy. It turns the complexities of naval aviation into a rhythmic, unstoppable force. So, the next time you see footage of the USS Gerald R. Ford, don't look for the missiles. Look at the clock. That is where the lethality lives. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the hidden mechanics of military power, make sure to smash that subscribe button and share this video with someone who thinks they know how aircraft carriers work. We are just scratching the surface of military technology. So comment below what piece of tech you want exposed next.